Trump orders large-scale strikes on Houthis, killing 31, targets hit in Taiz, power station bombed in Saada, causing a blackout. Israel ready to continue Gaza ceasefire talks based on the U.S. proposal for detainee release. Lataki explosion, death toll rises to 16. Rescue efforts continues as 18 injured, including 6 children. And it's 10 a.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Q News, and I'm Salma Al-Fi'i. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Yemen. U.S. President Donald Trump launched large-scale military strikes against Houthis on Saturday over the group's attacks against Red Sea shipping, killing at least 31 people. 2 witnesses said to Reuters that strikes also targeted Houthi military sites in Yemen's southwestern city of Taiz, and another strike on a power station in the town of Dahyan in Saada led to a power cut.
Good relationship with both parties, actually. And we'll see. We'll be knowing people are going to Russia right now as we speak.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to use the utmost force against Houthi bases in Yemen and to hold the group accountable for its attacks in the Red Sea. Trump stated that he has directed the U.S. military to carry out a decisive and powerful military operation against the Houthis in Yemen, emphasizing that the United States will not tolerate Houthi attacks on American ships and will use overwhelming lethal force to achieve its objectives. And Yemeni media announced that 31 people were killed and dozens injured as a result of the U.S. airstrikes on several areas in the country. According to Yemen's health authorities, at least 13 people were killed in the capital Sana'a, along with 10 others in Saada province, while dozens sustained injuries due to the American air raids. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov urged the United States to cease strikes against Yemen's Houthis. During his phone with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Sergei Lavrov stressed the need for an immediate cessation of the use of power and force and the importance for all sides to engage in political dialogue in order to find a solution that would prevent further bloodshed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that Israel is prepared to continue Gaza ceasefire talks based on the mediator's response to a U.S. proposal for the release of 11 living detainees and half of the deceased. The office stated in a statement that the Prime Minister held an in-depth discussion on the issue of detainees with the participation of ministers, the negotiation team, and the heads of security agencies. Yesterday, Saturday, witnessed the deadliest Israeli attack on the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire began last January. The Israeli army carried out an airstrike in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza, killing at least 9 aid workers in the attack. The Palestinian news agency reported that several civilians were injured after being targeted by the Israeli occupation forces in central Gaza. According to the agency, an Israeli drone struck a group of civilians while they were collecting firewood east of Johor Edik village in central Gaza, resulting in multiple injuries. Israeli forces carried out raids and arrests across several Palestinian cities while continuing to torch homes in Jenin and Tulkarm in the northern West Bank. According to media reports, Israeli troops stormed Askar refugee camp at dawn today and arrested 6 Palestinians from the towns of Beit Farik and Beit Dajan east of Nablus. Israeli forces arrested 5 Palestinian youths during raid on the town of Anata, east of Jerusalem, and in Jericho, troops entered the city from its eastern entrance, though no arrests or raids were reported. Meanwhile, several Palestinians suffered from tear gas inhalation as Israeli forces stormed the town of El Khader, south of Bethlehem. And now we move on to the latest developments in Syria. The Syrian Civil Defense announced that the death toll from an explosion in the city of Latakia, western Syria, has risen to at least 16. And in a statement on Platform X, the Civil Defense reported that 18 civilians were injured, including 6 children. It emphasized that the toll remains preliminary as search and rescue operations continue for over 13 hours to recover those trapped under the rubble of the destroyed residential building. The Syrian Civil Aviation Authority has announced the resumption of operations at Aleppo International Airport starting next Tuesday. The authority confirmed that the airport is now fully prepared to receive flights after completing all necessary technical and administrative preparations. Mustafa Kaj, the director of the Civil Aviation Authority's media office, told AFP that the airport will handle both a domestic and an international flight on reopening day without specifying the operating airlines or destinations. We now move on to the latest developments in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Ukraine's Air Force said that Ukraine's air defense units shot down 47 of 90 drones launched by Russia in an overnight attack. It said 33 drones were lost in reference to the Ukrainian military using electronic warfare to redirect them. And Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky urged Kiev's Western allies to give a clear position on security guarantees, including about a potential foreign troop contingent on Ukrainian soil with a U.S. backstop. His comments came during a virtual meeting held by the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer with other European leaders and allies, including Zelensky, while Starmer said a coalition of the willing would help secure Ukraine on the land, at sea, and in the sky in the event of a peace deal with Russia.
That will form the foundation of Europe's future armed forces. Peace will be more reliable with the European.
Russia's defense Ministry announced that its forces had taken control of 2 more settlements in its western Kursk region. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, its troops captured the villages of Ruben-Chinchina and Zaulashenka during their offensive operations in Kursk and attacked Ukrainian tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. Russia and Ukraine continued aerial attacks on each other, inflicting injuries and damages, officials said early on Sunday, as the fate of a proposed ceasefire to the 3-year-old war remains uncertain. Both sides have since traded heavy aerial strikes, and Russia moved closer on the battlefield to ejecting Ukrainian forces from their months-old foothold in the western Russian region of Kursk. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky stated that the issue of territories seized by Russia in its war with Ukraine is complex and should be discussed in details at a later time. During a press conference, Zelensky said he does not know exactly what was discussed in the recent talks between US and the Russian officials in Moscow.
Let's say this arrangement.
White House said that Trump administration has withdrawn the nomination of Adam Boehler to serve as the special presidential envoy for detainees affairs. A White House official said to Reuters that Boehler withdrew his nomination to avoid divesting from his investment company. And at least 19 people have died in the southern and central United States as a result of a powerful tornado and thunderstorms, according to the American media reports. Authorities warn that more storms are expected. Fatalities were recorded in 4 states: Missouri, Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, with some deaths linked to dust storm-related crashes and wind-fueled fires. French President Emmanuel Macron will host the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney for a meeting in Paris on Monday, in Carney's first foreign visit since taking office. Macron's office said that Carney also plans to visit Britain next week at a time of trade frictions with the US President Donald Trump and discussions to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. Thousands of protesters have gathered in Belgrade ahead of a mass demonstration set to take place. Despite tensions, demonstrators say they do not expect violence after Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić instructed police to show restraint while detaining any troublemakers. The protests, expected to be the largest in Serbia in decades, began as the student-led demonstrations in December. They were sparked by the deaths of 15 people when a railway station roof collapsed in Novi Sad on November the 1st, a disaster that opponents blame on corruption under Vučić's government. Authorities anticipate between 60,000 and 80,000 protesters in the capital, though organizers claim the turnout will be much higher. And Cuba was plunged into darkness late Friday, March the 14th, after a major failure in the national electrical grid, causing a widespread blackout. Energy Ministry officials reported that an electrical substation in Havana failed around 8:15 p.m. local time, cutting power to large parts of western Cuba, including the capital. Footage from Havana showed streets and neighborhoods in darkness, with only a few tourist hotels and restaurants operating on fuel-powered generators. This latest outage follows as a series of nationwide blackouts last year, exposing the country's fragile and outdated power system, already under strain due to fuel shortages, natural disasters, and an ongoing economic crisis. and wildfires tore through Stillwater, Oklahoma, destroying several homes and forcing authorities to issue urgent evacuation orders. The Stillwater Management Agency has warned residents not to return as fires are still actively burning in many parts of the city. Evacuations have also been ordered in other areas of Oklahoma, with multiple fires leaving thousands without power and making travel dangerous. Several highways, Department of Chapman and the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, according to local reports. NASA and SpaceX have successfully launched a long-awaited crew to the International Space Station ISS. Their mission is to replace and bring home U.S. astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who have been stuck on the ISS for 9 months. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying 4 astronauts as part of the Crew 10 mission. Wilmore and Williams originally arrived in June aboard Boeing's Starliner capsule, but technical problems with the aircraft's propulsion system made it too dangerous for them to return home as planned. Starliner was sent back to Earth empty in September, leaving them on board the ISS much longer than expected.
A little bit more relaxed, but still feeling all of that excitement and exhilaration for launch day. So I'd say it's fun.
And China's humanoid robot industry is making major strides with the latest model, N2, capable of performing continuous black flips, a significant breakthrough in robotics. Developed by a Beijing-based team, the 1.3-meter-tall robot demonstrates advanced agility and stability. Xiang Tuan, the team's technical leader, explained that black flips are more challenging than front flips due to the way inertia affects movement. To improve stability, engineers designed N2 with heavy joints placed closer to its center of gravity, making mid-air rotation easier. The robot also features powerful rotors and lightweight materials, enhancing its strength and flexibility. And now we move on to Rihem in our newsroom.
Thank you so much, Selma. We now move on to the economic, financial and business news with the latest here on Qnews. Research group Source Global predicts that Saudi Arabia's consulting market will grow by approximately 13% this year compared to 14% in 2024. Preliminary data from Source Global indicates that the consulting market in the Gulf region reached $7 billion in 2024, with Saudi Arabia holding the largest share. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a temporary spending bill after it was approved by Congress earlier this week. The bill passed in a Senate with a 54-46 vote as 10 Democrats joined Republicans in supporting the measure despite internal opposition. This legislation aims to fund federal agencies until the end of the current fiscal year in September 30th, 2025, giving lawmakers more time to negotiate a long-term budget.
They're in a very strong position militarily with quite a few.
Greece's outgoing finance minister announced that the country's central government primary surplus reached 3.5% of GDP last year, significantly surpassing the government's target. On Friday, the Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, appointed new ministers for finance and transport in a cabinet reshuffle aimed at bolstering support for its government following mass protests over a 2023 train crash. Peru's economy grew by 4.07% in January 2025, aligning with analysts' expectations, but slightly below the 4.85% growth recorded in December 2024. This growth was driven by the expansion of most sectors except for the financial sector, which declined, reflecting ongoing challenges in the monetary and investment environment. The announcement comes a day after Adrian Armas, the chief economist of Peru's central bank, predicted a growth rate of around 4% for January, slightly below the actual figure. Reuters, citing a draft statement from the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Quebec, has reported that the G7 might tighten sanctions on Russia if it rejects a proposed 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. Ministers discussed increasing pressure on Moscow, including new sanctions and an oil price cap. The G7 urged Russia to reciprocate and emphasize the need for effective security arrangements and additional aid for Ukraine.
So I think that here as G7...
Adam Zenter, chief economic strategist at Morgan Stanley, anticipates a slowdown in real GDP growth at 1% to 1.5% this year. Zenter cites regulatory and policy uncertainties, including restrictive immigration policies and tariffs, as contributing factors. She further suggests the Federal Reserve may implement multiple interest rate cuts starting as early as May. Now we go back to Salma in our studio.
Thank you, Riham. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we've been covering. Trump orders large-scale strikes on Houthis killing 31, targets hit in Taiz, power station bombed in Saada causing blackout. Israel ready to continue Gaza ceasefire talks based on U.S. proposal for detainee release. Lataki explosion, death toll rises to 16. Rescue efforts continue as 18 injured, including 6 children. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. And don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.